With almost every new idea, there are most likely some risks involved, whether it's a new car or a new building, or in this case, genetic engineering. There are definitely the pros, but there's also some cons. Genetic engineering is when one physically extracts a gene from one organism and implants it into another organism. The reason some people believe that genetic engineering is dangerous is because we are creating traits in an organism that nature cannot do on its own. There are many different types of risks when it comes to genetic engineering, like environmental or health. Because genetic engineering is still fairly new, there is still a lot to learn from it, and as the years go by, there should be fewer risks. Genetic engineering is such a broad topic because there are so many things that can be genetically transformed. The fact that there are so many options make the range of risk go from being minuscule to enormous. Scientists have been working on finding out the effects of genetic engineering on certain organisms to see how they affect a person's health and the environment. Environmental risks don't just include the environment, but humans and animals as well. One minor effect of genetic engineering is the increased amount of weeds that grow from the modification of plants. A much larger risk is what I like to call the chain effect. People are formulating plants to produce plastic, which, when they are being harvested, they could leave debris behind, and the deer, for example, might accidentally eat it. This could not only cause real harm, but it could also possibly lead to death. Like I said before, this is still very new, and we don't know what it can lead to. It's a huge risk to take to try modifying something, especially if we don't know if we can change it back. One of the most talked about genetic engineering has to do with producing new types of food. The controversy over genetically modified food is that it's hard to tell what was put in the specific food to change it. A lot of the food we eat today is genetically modified, and most people don't even know. It's scary to think that we don't really know what's in our food. The Union of Concerned Scientists came up with a great example of this. They said, a gene for one of the proteins in milk might be transferred into carrots. A mother who knows better than to give her sensitive child milk would not realize that she needed to avoid genetically engineered carrots with the allergenic milk protein. If the mother was to feed her child the carrot, who knows what could have happened? What if the child ended up in the hospital? Although there are benefits from genetic modified foods, like that of a tomato, it becomes softer at a slower pace so that it will last longer on the shelf. Another example is a strawberry. They can stay ripe during frost. Even though there are some great creations, the harm it can cause is not worth keeping a tomato or strawberry ripe for a long period of time. Les E. Furbank and Frank Forcello gave a great example in their article, Genetically Modified Crops and Farmland Biodiversity, of what can occur due to the genetically modifying foods. They said, in Great Britain, a native farm bird, the skylark, was indirectly affected by the introduction of GM sugar beets designed to resist herbicides. In planting this crop, the weeds were reduced substantially. However, since the birds rely on the seeds of this weed in autumn and winter, researchers expect that up to 80% of the skylark population would have to find other means of finding food. Not only could these modifications harm the animals, but also they could force them to try and change their lifestyle. In a way, it's a gamble. There are risks people have to take sometimes, but they must be aware of the consequences. Before any organism goes through the modification process, there must be a risk assessment. We need to figure out how likely it is for potential harm to occur. Because the risks vary in intensity, there is no standard risk assessment. Most of the time, scientists are the ones who evaluate the risk in each idea, although there are some cases where the public is given the opportunity to give their opinion on the matter. These assessments can be extremely complicated because there are many times where someone is going to have to make a judgment call, and the judgment could either be a really bad decision or a really good decision. One of the biggest things to think about when deciding to move ahead with the modification process is not only the short-term effects, but the long-term effects as well. In order to make the best decision, one should understand everything about the specific organism and their role in the world, because most likely the more the assessor knows, the better their judgment is. It's like gambling. The decision to go forward with the modification process can either be extremely successful or extremely bad. Genetic engineering is still new, and there is still a lot of time before we can learn more about what these modifications can lead to. It is very unlikely that all possible risks towards the environment and one's health has been recognized from the use of genetically engineered organisms. I'm going to end with my favorite thing I read. The Union of Concerned Scientists said, "We don't know a lot about the risks of genetic engineering, which is no reason for panic, but a good reason for caution." So what do you think? Are you willing to take the risk?